welcome to an episode of Digital Dialogues. My name's Ethan, and today I'm here with Deshé, digital strategist for Day One Agency. Deshé, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to join us today. So, just kind of wanted to ask you if you could kind of just describe your role as a digital strategist for Day One Agency and walk me through on what you kind of do on a daily basis and what are some of your tasks and responsibilities.
Yeah, happy to. So, first and foremost, Day One Agency, it started off as a PR agency around 10 years ago. We'll be 10 years old this year. And then the founders is they came from the more traditional PR world back in the day when the bread and butter of an agency was really like getting headlines and news articles. At that time, they saw the shift over to the importance of social media. So that's what we do. We help brands build out social media content. We help them think through their overall digital campaigns and activations for like some of their important moments throughout the year. And that's what I do in my day-to-day. Digital strategist, the work that I do is creative insights. So it's coming up with what's the behavior of the consumers online, what are the conversations they're paying attention to, and how do we take that knowledge to build out fun social things. And then it's also a little bit of influencer work where we are saying who's talking about us, who are the influencers who are popular, popping off. How can we get them to like come into our brand's world and ecosphere? That's my day-to-day.
I understand you've worn many hats throughout your career, being a teacher, counselor, and you studied global politics during your undergrad and college. I'm just curious as to what got you interested in working for a creative communications agency, and I guess more specifically, the digital realm in general. And then has that always been something you wanted to do or that you wanted to be involved with your career? And when did that start to look like a future career opportunity for you?
Yeah. I think funny enough, somewhere in my soul, I always knew. So like you said, I studied politics at the time. I studied international politics. At the time, I wanted to be a diplomat. That was like my childhood dream.
Mm-hmm.
But I picked up two minors while I was still in school in marketing and entrepreneurship, just because they felt right, And I had heard one of my marketing professors at my university talk, and I was like, okay, that seems like a cool experience, and it would be nice to study this. Then I did spend time as a teacher in trying to become a diplomat. I was traveling a lot, doing some charity work, doing some counseling work, teaching English in China. At some point, I came to a real, it was a very spiritual moment where it's just like, I think I want to do something more creatively inclined. So I went to grad school. I got my master's in media production. That was also overseas. And when I got back to the States, I'm from here, Los Angeles, right? And this is kind of the hub for media and entertainment. And so it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was easier to sort of like find a home with transitioning over to the creative industry. And I love it here. It's great.
I guess what kind of specific skills do you think have really transferred from you or for you from your previous work and experiences?
Yeah. I feel like this is going to be the answer no one wants to hear, right? Because I think people tend to, I think when you ask a question like this, people want to know like, what's the like golden formula? Like, what's the hard skill that I could be learning? And that's going to be different based on like what you want to do, right? So like if you know in your heart and soul you want to be a designer, go learn Adobe Photoshop, right? For me, the thing that really helped me transition over was just critical thinking, which truly is the most important skill that I use in my job every day. When you study politics, you're essentially learning how to think critically, and how that's transferred over to my current work. Again, I told you a lot of my work has to do with consumer behavior and insights. What are the people talking about? And it's being able to see, use that information and think, can the brand engage in this? Should the brand engage in this, right? Just because something's popping off doesn't mean that brands should enter the space. It's sort of like knowing when and where is the right time to authentically engage.
And then I guess this next question, it may be more of a personal question. So I was just kind of curious, what made you, decide to pursue a master's in media production? And what kind of goals in your career do you hope to achieve? And after receiving that degree?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there was a point in time where I had studied international politics, right? And I studied
Mhm.
marketing. At the time, I didn't know why I was studying marketing. I was just pursuing my passions, right? I was passionate about it at the time. I didn't know how it was gonna manifest in my life. Um, I'm not sure if you have this at USC. I'm pretty sure you do, but I was the president of our Model United Nations club on campus. So
Yeah,
essentially, what that is like it's an organization where you pretend to be like a representative or ambassador from the United Nations.
yeah,
Had a lot of great perks because we got to travel. I remember one conference in particular that we traveled to. So we went from here in Los Angeles over to New York, which is where sort of like the UN General Assembly is, like very big cultural landmark for that industry. Very big event. They brought in all these guest speakers. And I remember there was a guest speaker who came in. I don't recall her name, but she worked for the Global Poverty Project, is now called Global Citizen. It's that organization that hosts like the big Global Citizen Festival where they have like Beyonce and Taylor Swift come
yeah.
raise money for charity. I remember thinking, wow, this is such a beautiful way to involve like media and events and marketing, but also it is related to like social change and international relations. I remember in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do something like that, right? Um, the program that I did actually was a dual degree program. It was a master's in international relations because it was taught partly by the international relations department at that school, but it also had a practical element of it where it was also taught by the School of Media, right? So it was specifically how can you learn to produce media for social change? And that's kind of like how I ended up in that program. Still a life goal of mine to sort of think whenever I'm loving the work that I'm doing where I am now. I think the next chapter will be work that's more aligned with sort of like social change and media marketing.
Got it. I guess working at Day One Agency with many of your guys' clients being of big and renowned companies such as Nike, Chipotle, and Lyft, they're also different and they're in drastically different industries. What would you say are the biggest differences and similarities working with such distinct companies? And if you could provide like a specific example of how you needed to adjust, or if there are any specific tools that work better for one company, depending on the industry they're in.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really great question. Because they are all different industries, which means they all inherently each brand works differently because they care about different things, right? So when you're working on Chipotle, you're spending a lot of time looking at what we call QSR, which is just the word that we use for like the food industry, food and beverage industry. So you're paying attention a lot to like what are the competitors in this space doing, sort of what is McDonald's and Taco Bell doing, and then from there you have to look through the lens of like what is cool, what's going to be cool for like a food brand is not necessarily going to be cool for Nike, right? They're different categories, and because of that they need different strategies on how they can engage. So I guess to say more about that, let's do a comparison of like Chipotle versus Nike. If you were to go and look at Chipotle's social media channels, a lot of it ties back to humor and relatability. That's the overall vibe and tone that comes across in anything from like the media that we're producing or the captions that we're writing. If you were to head over to Nike's page, it's much more lifestyle, right? Because the product is not food, it's clothes, right? And it's trying to portray the image of like, if you buy this product, you are a part of this tribe. So you're going to see a lot more fashion influencers. You're going to see a lot more like fit checks, probably a lot more get ready with me, where like at the end you put on your favorite dunks or something like that. And I think, and that also just leads to like a difference in strategy and a difference in the day to day kind of thing, right? Some brands need to like have an active finger on the pulse all the time because they want to produce content every single day. Other brands are like, no, actually we're gonna show up when like we want to. That's a part of it. Like we're gonna take like the Frank Ocean approach kind of thing, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess when you're talking about how Chipotle, if you're looking at the profile, it definitely makes sense. I feel like food in general, many of their profiles try to express humor more so than lifestyle.
I guess another big part of it is like every brand has a different target consumer. So like one brand might be targeting a younger generation, right? Which means that like when you are posting, you have to create things that that generation is going to find appealing and cool. Whereas another brand might be geared towards an older consumer because their product costs a little more, right? So you have to target the people who can afford to live that lifestyle, which means their content might be a bit more mature, right? So
Yeah, makes sense. I
yeah.
guess that kind of leads on to my next question, but I guess what are some ways and kinds of digital tools and platforms you guys use to help clients strategize and stay on top of their competitors? And if you could provide like a very surface level walkthrough of how that process begins to look like once you guys, sign with clients to help them out with their brand.
Yeah, yeah. In the world of like marketing, you tend to work in like what we call a deck, right? Which I think like if I were to say that to someone younger, they may or may not know what that is. It's like a PowerPoint, right? But it's like a
Hmm.
PowerPoint that um includes strategy, includes like a timeline, includes budget, includes like the overall story of what you are trying to tell. So if you're coming into this industry, you're going to spend a lot of time in either PowerPoint or Google Slides or some sort of equivalent to that. And you spend a lot of time collaborating with team members, sort of working on what are we saying in this section? How does this layer back to the overall story? Because essentially what you're doing is you're creating a pitch for your clients weekly, if not daily, right? A pitch to say, we saw this, we think it would be really cool for the brand to engage, or maybe it's something that they asked you to do. And you're like, okay, this is what you asked, and this is how we think it can be executed. Outside from that, it also sort of like depends on your role, right? So like again, if you are someone who um, is doing more traditional like social media management, you might be in a tool like Hootsuite or Sprinkler, just something that's meant to like do social media scheduling or sort of like help you with community management in regards to looking up like comments or commentary that's happening online in relation to the brand. If you're doing like reporting, you might be working in like number software like Google Sheets. It really just depends on like what's your niche inside of the agency or organization.
I
Hmm.
guess for your specific position, are there any tools to kind of help you strategize or come up with ideas? Like, or if you like collaborate with other parts of the agency and other teams and utilize their tools, like, um, check out maybe Hootsuite's analytics.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's super helpful. So in my role day to day, again, I do influencer strategy, right? And that a lot of the times some of the best tools out there are actually the free tools. They're like the platforms themselves, right? So
Hmm.
if I am looking for a TikTok influencer or like what's the conversation you're having on TikTok, often I will start my journey on TikTok, right? Because that's where I'm getting like the raw data. Other times, if I get like a bunch of restriction from the client saying like we want an influencer, but they have to be this age of this demographic or this many followers, right? We have tools for that. I'm not sure if I can disclose what tools, but we have tools specifically where it's like helping you find out like here's the influencer, here's their audience, and then outside from that, this is the part I'm actually really excited to talk about. So I think tools that I'm using every day are AI services like ChatGPT or Google Gemini because it really has reduced the amount of time of staring at a blank page. I think any creative anywhere, whether you're working at an agency or in house or um, for a nonprofit for yourself, there's going to be a point in time where you have to do the process of actually creating. And that almost always starts with a question and a blank page, right? And what I'm finding super helpful is when I have something like ChatGPT, right? I know what the question is. I have a vague idea of what the answer is, but I don't know how it comes to life. I will
Yeah.
collaborate with ChatGPT to think about it, right? So it's not like a direct copy and paste. It's more like, hey, this is my pain point right now. This is my assignment. Give me like 5 ideas that you have just based off this question. I'll see the ideas and I'll say, okay, not quite, but there are bits and pieces from all of these that I can like pull from to then take to that blank page and create like a more cohesive narrative.
I was gonna ask about AI in another question, but I'm glad you brought it up. I guess over the years, how do you think you know digital media has changed the landscape for marketing and communications for, I guess, just both agencies and high profile companies you work with? I know AI has been one. Would you see it as more of a benefit or a struggle? And are you seeing that with all these other big companies as well? I know for you, it's benefiting your role specifically, but I guess just looking at it from a broader perspective, at other companies and how they're dealing with it. If you could speak on that.
Yeah. This is a controversial question that I'm happy to answer. I think the technology is going to help us in the long run, but I think we're at a unique point in time where it's so new and there's a lot of fear around it, right?
Hmm.
I think if you were to ask someone else, you might get an answer that's closer to like AI is here to take our jobs, or it's like AI is the reason that like people are getting laid off. It's just like it's just a current wave of technology. Once upon a time, the idea of like Facebook was wild and like people were like, I can't wrap my head around this. And now you
Yeah,
fast forward to today and it's really changed the landscape of just like the digital media game, but also just people's lives. It's helped some people find like new career paths in regards to like being a creator or like creating their own personal brand. And I think AI is like this this moment in time's version of that, right? I think whether or not we like it, it's here. Um, and if you learn to use it, it can be of massive benefit to you. In regards to like, again, I work in an agency, and I think there are a lot of people in the creative industry who might say like, oh, well, if AI can edit our photos or do the video editing, then why am I here? We still need that human component because, like I was saying before, AI is pretty good about like giving you raw facts and data and information. It's not great about adding human context. And I think some companies that I've really seen lean into it in like a really cool way, like I think like Coca-Cola, and they have an entire department dedicated to AI. They're making like AI ads. Um, Heinz had a really good AI campaign. It's like sparking creativity in the way that it should. And I think once we get it to a time where like more people are embracing it, we're gonna see like a lot of positive come out of it.
that's that's probably one of the best answers I've heard since I began this project. Love that perspective that you
Hmm.
have for the future. I guess moving forward, what's some of advice you could provide to those who want to become digital marketers from your own personal experience or just being in the field for some time?
Yeah, I think the best thing that you could do for, and this isn't exclusive to digital, but I think it is particular if you want to work with digital marketing. You have to think about what your digital persona is. What does your LinkedIn page look like? What does your social media page look like? Nowadays, people are like going to your HR managers, hires, talent recruiters. They're going to your social page to like get a general understanding of you, right? Like gone are the days where a Google search is enough. Now it's a known thing that like you can go to someone's page and see snippets of who they are, right? Now that doesn't mean that you need to have thousands of followers to work in digital, but do have intentionality about like how you're showing up online. So like if you're like, man, my Instagram is for like me and my family, you could always turn your page private, right? Or you can keep it public. But like if you're putting things on your socials, right, that like would not look good to a talent manager, right? Like think about like, is this something that's going to a private page? Is it something that I'm sharing with close friends only? Like, what's your digital billboard kind of thing? And if you have a certain skill set, or even if you don't have a certain skill set, think about how you can show interest in that or proof of that online, right? So if you have a portfolio, that's great. If you want to be a creative copywriter, how can you make it obvious that you enjoy writing online? You just write on LinkedIn, you can write on Twitter, right? You can even like get creative with your captions on Instagram, like all that stuff matters. And I would say like outside of if you if you study marketing in school, great. If you don't, there are so many free services out there for self-learning, right? Whether it's YouTube or like Google has a bunch of like digital marketing courses and stuff like that. So do that, get the knowledge, learn the language, and then go to project so that you can like have something to show.
Awesome. I know you highlighted the importance of having a portfolio to me earlier, and um, I think that's really important as well. Being able to really, capture your interests and show what your skills and knowledge could really, provide, and turn that into a product or something that you could display to someone. I think that's the best way to really leverage yourself on top of others. So appreciate that
Yeah,
advice. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to help me with this project. Really appreciate it.
of course, man. I appreciated this. This was a fun one.